On the sandy ocean floor of the pristine and picturesque Opito Bay, scallops or tipa were once in abundance. Now the clear, calm waters hide the trouble brewing beneath the surface. Opito Bay was one of the last surviving scallop beds on the eastern side of the Coromandel. After decades of unconstrained harvest, the scallop population is now dwindling. Entire beds on the Coromandel Peninsula are drastically diminishing, and some have even disappeared. Over several years, Opito Bay locals have tirelessly tried to engage with Fisheries New Zealand, but without success.
Ngāti Hei and the Opito Bay Rattlers Association met, and they realised that actually Rāhui was the obvious answer. It was a community-led initiative, and rather than waiting for MPI, they needed to take responsibility. They need to show action.
In December 2020, a Rāhui was put in place by Ngāti Hei to protect any remaining scallops in Opito Bay.
It's for the benefit of everybody that we have to make this sacrifice now. So we've just seen what's happened to our crayfish, now our scallop, and it's going on to our kutai, mussel. They are all Tangaroa's mokopuna. They're all Tangaroa's children. And they're part of our food basket here. We need to conserve and to be able to manage all of our kaimoana so that our children and their children and have the have the fundamental right of being able to feed your families and for the sheer enjoyment of being able to catch a fish and or enjoy a scallop or enjoy a mussel.
For many holiday makers and locals alike, it has been a tradition to collect scallops here over the summer. Opito is also a customary gathering place for the local iwi Ngāti Hei.
What was incredibly inspirational was the fact that not only did the community know about it, they respected it. So over the entire 10 or 2-week period over Christmas, locals saw about 6 boats scallop dredging or scallop diving in the Opito Bay area. In an area where over the same period in historic years they would see 30 to 40 boats a day. Kuatuna, other areas in the Coromandel were immediately asking for it. What about us? We want it too. That appetite for it's only grown, and that's actually given Ngāti Hei real confidence.
Ngāti Hei's request to the Ministry for the Environment is seeking to officially prohibit any harvest of scallops for a minimum of 2 years. The request extends to the entirety of the Rāhui, stretching from Whangapaua to Onemana and out to the Mercury Bay Islands. The Opito Bay Ratepayers Association has already raised over $25,000 to contribute to the recovery of the scallops.
I mean, years ago, you could walk along the beach after a nor'easterly storm and the whole 4 kilometres was covered, at high tide mark was covered in scallops, and you could get 20 scallops each, no problem at all. Around about 5 or 6 years ago, that stopped happening. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, go down on your boat, go down the anchor chain, and within 5 minutes have 20 scallops, which is the legal amount. But that's all changed. I mean, evidence of people going out there now, or before this Rāhui took place, are saying they're down there using a full tank of gas and not getting their quota of 20 scallops. People are saying, we've had enough of waiting, right? We need to save this beautiful taonga called the Hauraki Gulf, of which our beach is part of, 1.2 million hectares, and 0.03% has any legal protection.
So it's nice to see, and I think something that we can really learn from and apply going forward, when we do have the combination of the community, working with the local iwi, and using a citizen science approach, it's a very powerful message, and I think it's a message which the government will find it very hard to resist.
A dive survey to determine how many scallops were actually left was prompted as MPI had not completed a scallop abundance survey at Opito and the surrounding area since 2010.
Now, it's been really good to be involved in this process with Legacy and the Opito Ratepayers Association doing these scallop surveys. So we were asked to participate and do the practical parts of it, which involves surveying as many sites as we could. So we've completed 45 different sites, which are GPS coordinates across Opito Bay, ranging from 10 metres to about 20 metres. At each of these sites, we sent 2 divers down to the bottom where they completed 3 5-metre circles, and they collected every scallop that they could find, measuring it and counting them, and then leaving them on the bottom. So once the surveys are completed, the information was sent to Hongamai University for their scientists to collate. They're also using historic data, and NIWA are also currently out there doing further surveys, which hopefully will get a really good benchmark of what the conditions of the beds are like, and it'll be really good for the region. So I think it's great for our kids to be able to go out and still harvest some of these scallops in the future.
The data shows that there are very few small scallops. This means our scallop beds are unlikely to recover from their depleted state anytime soon.
So that's indicative of the fact that we're using these really destructive fishing techniques to actually chew up the seafloor, the benthic environment, the scallops, the invertebrates, everything. But these small scallops are getting absolutely hammered because their shells aren't formed, they're weak, which could mean that it actually gets worse before it gets better. And what it showed was that you have to swim 26 metres in the commercially dredged areas to find one legal scallop. Now that's the length of a swimming pool. That's a really long way between these scallops. Now what's alarming about that is the fact that the way in which these scallops reproduce is they actually just release the eggs and everything up into the water column. That then spirals around through the currents and they produce fertilised spat. Now if you don't have a density of scallops, then you risk complete collapse of these populations.
I mean, they discovered a new scallop bed off Cape Colville quite a few years back, maybe 10 years back. That bed has just been almost totally depleted, and that was a place where the spat that landed in Opito Bay landed and grew into scallops.
We've got a bit of a situation of history repeating itself. There are multiple examples in New Zealand about how scallops have been mismanaged. The Tasman Bay, Marlborough Sounds and the Kaipara Harbour are all closed to scallop harvest, and that's because we've overfished them. We've used destructive fishing techniques. We've dragged these dredges all over the seafloor. We've taken too many.
For the last 16 years, 5,000 scallop lovers have amassed in Whitianga for its annual Scallop Festival. For the first time, organisers have decided to take the delicacy off the menu. The festival used to source an average of 700 kilograms of scallops for the one-day event. That's about 3,500 scallops.
In support of Ngāti Hei and their efforts to have a Rāhui imposed over the area for, to allow their scallop beds to rest, Whitianga Scallop Festival made the decision that this year we won't have scallops at our festival, and that we rebrand, and we are going to be the Whitianga Oceans Festival this year. We're still celebrating seafood. We're hoping that as much as possible of that will be locally sourced. Many of our community groups use this festival as their biggest fundraising event for the year, and it gives them an opportunity to show off some of their outstanding cooking talents and creating some of their amazing seafood dishes.
The festival has rapidly evolved in response to the Rāhui and is shifting to focus on a more sustainable approach to source seafood. Scientific evidence declares dredging has harrowing environmental costs, yet under our quota management system it remains legal.
A good example is Coromandel. It's Coromandel scallops, where there's 50 tonne of quota allocated, but physically the commercial industry is only able to catch 16 tonnes. What we'd like to see is not a removal of commercial fishing, but it's actually a fishing industry that's responsible, it's prioritising the health and marine environment first, and it's actually looking to use really selective, sustainable techniques. The immediate example is hand gathering of scallops. We do it for paua, we do it for kina, we're spearfishing for butterfish in the South Island. It would reduce the impact on the ecosystem, it would allow finfish, the recovery of invertebrates, of a whole lot of other species that cohabitate the scallop beds, and ultimately it would allow for a much healthier environment, which will create an abundance.
Together, we can sustain our kaimoana for future generations. Our moana is our taonga. If we join forces and take action to care for our ocean, the ocean will take care of us. We are the guardians of the treasure that is Opito Bay.